Okay, we are live.
Wait a minute. We're live?
Live. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that. We're
This-
live now? Like right now?
Officially.
We're on the air.
Officially. This is Pastor Joel on the Super Chill Podcast, WestCoast Podcast. We have Bishop Filkey with us.
Hello, Bishop.
As usual.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to have you. We have Chris Flanagan.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest, our good friend, Glenn. Glenn, welcome.
Glenn
Welcome.
Woodward.
Glenn,
Good to be
the Glenn
The
Woodward.
one and only.
yes.
Yeah, so we're very excited about the podcast today, man. We've been pumped about it.
Hey,
And,
before we get in the interview, let's talk about the weather. Can you believe that we've had the high temperatures, and all of a sudden the cloud covers back down?
Well, for everyone out there listening that may not be in California, we do get mostly great weather.
We do.
And the last few days has been beautiful, nice and cool, but also the sun is out, so it's kind of warm. But all of a sudden, it was like made us flinch because I think we thought rain was coming, but
Right. But I
backed out.
love the heat, right? Vitamin D. Everyone needs to be out and get their vitamin D. I go out and take sun showers, literally. I'll go out in the backyard, take off my shirt so the neighbors don't have nightmares and stuff like that, and scarred mentally, emotionally, and just, bask in the sun.
that's good for you.
And then went out today, of all things, and
No
it's
sun.
cloud cover again.
Well, and it's going to be in the 60s all day today, they said.
And they're saying that this sun could be a part of the equation and further flattening the virus.
Yeah,
You know,
so Chris and I were talking about that the other day. Is that apparently they're saying that the sun does kill it, so it can't continue to sit there and
Right.
whatever because they say it, if something on rubber or plastic, they said it can last up to 2 hours or something like that.
Right.
They said, but if the sun hits it, it just evaporates it.
Yeah, so they were
apparently.
talking about like on your doorknob, it might stay on there for a day, but if it's 110 degrees outside, it'll only be on there for
Yeah,
a
I
few
mean,
minutes,
I really still think that the verdict's not completely in on that. There are some
agree.
people right now that are still saying that this could be one of the largest over-exaggerated deals. And I know there's people that died, and our hearts go out to those people. It is a serious virus, but the verdict is not in terms of how widespread this
Right.
really is. I mean, California, we've done the shelter-in-place thing.
Yeah.
That has definitely helped flatten
Yeah.
the curve. Thanks to everybody who's been staying home and doing your part.
It's definitely real, but you're saying there's some deception involved.
Well, there's a lot of people in high places that are saying that, like a lot of stuff in America, that has been politically manipulated, you know what I mean, to manipulate politics or whatever. But
Yeah.
anyway, next subject. Yeah.
Well, just before you move on from that, I'll just say this: I'm just sick and tired of it. I'm praying for the Lord to fix a lot of that, so much of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Sick and tired of not going outside, or sick and tired of the
No.
whole political
Sick and tired
situation?
of the political manipulation, and,
Yeah.
and
'Cause
no
I'm
matter no matter what side of the fence you're on, it's always going on. It's to the point I don't watch the news really anymore. I don't, I barely even check anything on Facebook.
Have you guys noticed, like, all the newscasts now is pretty much
Yeah.
in the same
Yep.
deal. Yeah.
And it's been proven.
Yeah.
They've proven that.
Yeah.
So okay. Anyways, Glenn, great to have you on the show, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, very. You're gonna have. Glenn is not just our friend, but he also plays with us and worships with us. Has been worshiping with us for many years,
Keyboard.
and very well known. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But let's start off about where you're from. Where you from, Glenn?
New Brunswick, Canada.
New Brunswick, Canada.
way on
the
East Coast.
Canada. Yes.
Wow.
So he is.
I moved as far away from home as I could. 3,800 miles.
And how
I love Canada, eh?
Yeah,
I love
Canada's
Canada,
cool.
man.
Canada
we
a few
toured
times.
Canada, your mom and I, and we
Yeah.
just fell in love with Canada.
when you guys were in ministry, doing ministry.
Glenn is like in an area, though, that is one of the most beautiful areas. That's where he's from.
Yeah, you were telling me the other day because I've been to Canada a couple times, but I know very little about it. So I looked it up, and you were telling me how big it is again. How'd you say that?
No, when I left New Brunswick, I think there were 250,000 people in the province.
Wow.
250.
But you were saying there's as many people in L.A. or how'd you say that?
No. There's as many people in California as there is in the entire country of Canada.
Wow.
Oh, so that's like 20 some odd million.
I think 28.
Yeah, I think we're at 24 million, so it's close. Wow.
But
So,
Canada's bigger than.
Yeah, Canada is geographically bigger than U.S.
Wow.
What was the big shock when you came here? Like, what was the big difference between here and Canada?
The biggest shock
The difference between here and Canada, was there anything like just stands out to you like this is different?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of preconceived ideas about California, and yeah.
Like
I don't-
what?
Some of those got.
Come on, spill your guts. Like what?
No, some of those. some of those need to go to the vault.
Yeah,
Stay in
yeah.
the vault.
Well, is it true that the people say that Americans are arrogant? Does that sort of ring true as
It's
far as
just
the
a
Canadian?
different culture. I mean, I think I was groomed, quiet.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
You know,
Yeah.
I'll tell you something about.
I don't usually come into the room first.
Right.
Right.
Well, you're a
But then
polite.
they also say that usually the smartest person in the room is the quietest.
Okay,
There you
yeah.
go.
All
okay.
right,
That's
okay.
good.
Strike one up there.
So,
I'm not
yeah.
talking anymore. The rest
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Go ahead.
Man, I talk a lot.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing I thought about Canadians, and nothing personally against you, but they say Canadians are some of the nicest people you've ever met in your life. And been to Canada a bunch of times. I didn't think they were any different really than Americans, in
Well-
that sense. In terms of like super nice, like people say that about Hawaii. I found that to be true. People in Hawaii.
I'll tell
are
you
super
something
nice.
about Canadians you probably don't know. They will fight you at a drop of the hat over
I've
hockey.
heard that.
Over hockey.
Oh yeah.
It's on, buddy.
Are you a hockey fan?
Used to play.
Yeah.
play
You
before I
played?
left.
Oh,
You
I didn't know
played?
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you probably skate pretty good.
I can hold my own.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite hockey team?
Now, the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
Oh,
there
okay.
you go.
Okay.
Title town.
Yeah.
Oh, went American, huh? Went
Okay.
ahead and come over to American
So you moved
side.
here from Canada. How old were you?
Let's see, man, I came to school when I was 24.
24 years old. And you
Yeah,
still
I-
frequent back and forth.
Yeah, I actually, you remember the Goodines.
Yeah. Oh, I love Wayne.
Yeah.
Wayne
Oh,
Goodine
yeah,
and
man.
his
Shout out.
family.
So he was
Wayne
like
and
my
Elizabeth.
connection to Stockton. He was the dean of
Okay.
music in Stockton.
I didn't realize
yeah,
that.
at the Bible College, and so I went to hear them in concert in New Brunswick. They came back to do a tour back there, and
Yeah.
so I went to hear them.
Lead me, Lord,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
I will follow.
And
Oh,
so
my God.
back in those days,
Yeah.
I remember I sent my application to Bible school, and I thought, man, they're never going to accept me. And little did I know they were actually trying to get recruitment up. So
Was you like a rocker or something back in Canada, or was, you know what I'm saying?
That's
like
a great
before you
question.
got
How'd you
saved,
even- start playing?
how'd that all
no,
happen?
man. Well, when I was a kid, my mom and dad would drag me to Singspirations every
Oh, wow.
Friday night.
Okay.
Remember,
Singspiration? What's
Yeah,
a Singspiration?
yeah.
Singspiration back in the day was like all the different groups in the area came for a Sunday night service or a Saturday, and you had food and sang. Everybody sang, and
Yeah.
like a big fellowship meeting.
And were your parents in ministry?
My dad's always served on a board. Like
Okay.
he's always been the treasurer. In fact, he's 83 and he's still the treasurer at my
Wow.
dad's church.
That's cool.
83, still
But-
strong too.
But back in those days, man, when they had Singspirations, all the material, you'll remember, they had songs that were depressing, like "Please Search the Book Again."
Quartets. Oh,
Search
yeah.
the book again.
Yeah.
Soul,
yeah.
Soul
Oh, man.
Harbor.
Yeah.
Soul
Wow.
Harbor.
Like
I've
put
never-
you in hell music.
Yeah.
Very, very depressing.
Search the
Yeah.
book again. That just I've never.
But
heard
it stuck
that.
with me, and all those, all those years. No, I mean,
No, I get it. I
I
get what
mean,
you're
like
saying.
all
yes.
the old hymns and stuff.
Sure.
Like a lot of times, I'll be on stage playing for
And it'll
somebody,
come
and
to you.
they'll be like, "What's the words to the verse?" And
Yeah.
a lot of those are logged up in here somewhere.
That's good. That's
So.
good.
Yeah, I remember those songs. When I was like you, Pentecost, you got saved every Sunday
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
every Wednesday. And if you didn't go to church, if the rapture happened, you ain't going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yowza.
my first live gig ever, I was 10 years old, and there was this old evangelist named Freddie Clark.
Wow.
And I don't
heard of
know.
him.
Have you heard
Yeah,
of
I've
him?
heard of him.
He's prophetic and still has the gift of
Oh,
healing
still-
and that
still
kind of
doing it.
stuff. He's in his 70s now. I think he's 76 or 77. But he actually came to a church that I help out at Union City this year.
Wow.
But when I was 10, I did my first live gig in his tent revival, and I was playing bass guitar for him. And he didn't know I was going to be there. This just happened like 2 or 3 months ago. And I was playing the B3, and he walked over and he said, "That boy over there looks familiar." He said, "But I see him playing a bass." And it freaked me out.
Yeah.
True story.
Wow. So you play bass and piano. How many instruments do you play? I've never asked you that question, I don't think. How many
Well, I
instruments
don't
do you
play.
play?
I don't play as many as you,
Oh.
Bishop.
Well, no.
I used to play banjo.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I
Well, you
didn't
and
know
I
that.
got to pick and grin a little bit, buddy. I'll pull out the mandolin and we're
That's been a
gone,
long time
buddy.
So
ago.
back to hold on a second. So the evangelist, he said it to you when you were 10 or just a few months ago?
Just a couple months ago,
So
I was
he-
playing the organ, and he was down ministry in the
Wow.
front,
And he
and
turned around and
Wow.
recognized
he
you.
looked over and he goes, that boy over there looks familiar. He said,
But I
but
picture him with a bass.
I picture
How
him
old
with
is
the
he
bass.
now?
Really?
How old is he
Wow.
now?
77.
77.
Wow. So
that's
he must have
crazy.
been a real young, probably 18, 20 when he was
Yeah.
preaching back then.
Yeah, back in the day, I mean, we're talking early 70s.
Yeah.
So
Your mom and dad are some of the loveliest people. I mean, meeting them even on FaceTime, like we've done a couple of times, they're just some of the loveliest people.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit
that's
about your mom.
Mom, well, she used to play the guitar. You know, her and Dad, they were like a duo. He was
Oh, really?
on
I
the
didn't
accordion.
know
and-
that.
So they're musicians and singers
Yeah.
too?
Oh.
Wow.
Okay.
Who
so
knew?
I grew up in the church, and Dad was playing the organ. Mom was playing the
So
guitar.
so was she a church girl when your dad met her? And
That's a whole other thing, man. Dad grew up in education, but he actually taught my mom.
so he's a teacher.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
wow.
Nowadays, you know, if somebody married
Right.
their teacher, it would be a major
Oh
scandal.
yeah, oh yeah,
But it
oh
was,
yeah.
you know, back then it was a
Wow,
one-room
wow.
schoolhouse. So
And they got married when they're how old? Do you know? When they're
Dad was 24, and she was 19.
wow.
That's not
Wow.
even.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
well. I was
Yeah,
tw-
that's
I
not
was
bad.
22, and your mom was 17. So I robbed
Yeah.
the cradle. Yep. Go to jail for that these days. But
Yeah, right. Yeah.
yeah.
So you moved here and you're 24. You started playing. Got any kids?
I do. I got Dylan. He's 20 now in Bible school,
Okay.
worship leader, and Dawson. He's 13, and he's actually the next Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Those are good boys, man. You got
Your
great
oldest
kids.
boy takes after you, huh? A lot in terms of musically.
A lot. You know, he's kind of stepped into his own as a worship leader, and he plays some.
Yeah.
And I've tried to give him
Here in
lessons.
town, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've tried to give him lessons, but he wants to learn everything off YouTube.
It's it's difficult to sit. and I've
Wow.
heard this from a lot of people. It's difficult to sit down with a parent and them show you an instrument. My dad, when I was learning guitar or whatever, he showed me a couple little things, and then just basically it's you practicing.
Yeah.
Figuring it out.
But, he's starting to record now and write his own music, and he has a very detailed description of what he wants his arrangement to be. And I hope he doesn't see this, but
Sounds familiar to me.
but I'll tell you,
Seems
we'll be
like-
in the studio, and I'll be sitting there playing, and he has no problem telling me when
What he
I'm
wants.
wrong and when I'm right.
Yeah.
So-
Seems,
Well, he knows what he
seems
wants.
like I've
That's
heard.
cool.
Seems like I've met someone like that.
yeah,
before,
yeah.
So it's just a chip off the old block.
Well, to be a perfectionist is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad thing unless you're going in the studio too, as everyone at this table has, and unless you're going into the studio and you're trying to make something kind of sloppy, garage bandish sort of thing. People are usually very specific about what they want.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I have been in studio sessions where they told me, I went in there and I played 2-pocket, and they said, no, play sloppier.
Mhm.
No, play sloppier. And I'm like, if I play any sloppier, just turn the metronome off.
Right.
I don't.
Right. But I raised you to stay in the pocket
no,
because
pocket
I
drummer.
spent a lot of time in the recording studio.
Right,
You know what I mean?
Right.
Speaking of the recording studio, today for me is a pretty exciting day because we know Glenn. People within our circle know Glenn Woodward as someone that works with us and been a part of ministry here in town. But there is so much that
Right.
people don't know
They
about
don't
this
know.
guy, and it's going to be fun to just kind of pick his brain a little bit today and get some
Yeah,
history.
So for a lot of you guys that don't know, Glenn has played with some of the most accomplished and famous musicians and singers, literally of our generation, and I don't say that lightly.
Well, let me say this to you, to probably start from the beginning. Most people in this area that are watching on our immediate feeds here will remember, without too much problem, Glenn leading the choir here at CLC, and those were some amazing days.
Yeah.
Some of the most amazing, I'll use the word phenomenal songs. The Lord used you to both write and produce. So let's start there. I mean, talk about your history a little bit
Man,
with
it
CLC
was
and such.
it was a different day. I mean, when you think about how church is developed now and how congregations are built, and ministries are built now, back in those days, it was just different, man. I mean, like our world revolved around church all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I started that choir with 3 people.
Three
Three people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is the youth choir?
The youth choir with 3 people, and I probably wouldn't be as hard on people now as I was back then. I mean, just as far as
Well,
requiring
I don't know.
a lot.
It worked.
Well,
It
you're,
worked.
Oh,
But we
absolutely.
grew from 3 people to when I left there, the mass choir, combined choir, adult and youth were 145, 150 strong.
Wow.
There has got to be, when I say tens of thousands of people
Oh yeah.
that ran through that. I'm thinking about our ministry, and our ministry is small. And I think we had calculated we've probably had 100,000 people run through here.
Wow.
I'll bet you they had 250,000 run through that ministry. How big was that choir at the height?
150, 145,
Oh,
150.
that's a
so
large
what
choir.
I mean, I started with youth choir, but then I developed into doing the adult choir in the morning and youth choir at night. But then once a month I would have mass choir Sunday and
Right.
put them together.
And here's a word that folks will recognize: landmark. Landmark. Talk about landmark in
Landmark
association with all
convention.
that.
Yeah, that was our preaching conference every January.
And that's where the choir, though, they would come in and really.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And for people listening out there that may not have seen videos of this, or you've maybe not heard the CD, this is not a make believe 145 like
No.
30, but actually called 100. This is a legitimate.
No, we actually have a clip.
Right. This is
We
a
actually have a
legitimate.
clip.
Before we play that, a legitimate 150 real member choir. Because a lot of people always say, "Oh, we had about 100 people up there." You know, maybe 30 people on the stage. There was a legitimate 100
Live. Because when I first met Glenn,
lot of work.
Glenn was the first person I knew that worked like with these computerized systems. I guess MIDI. I guess you'd call it MIDI. And you mastered that, but this was live.
That was live.
Yeah, this was live, and was some of the greatest
That
players.
was one of the novelties about the whole youth choir thing is we would just rehearse and once we had established arrangement, every Sunday, every church service was like a recording.
I think we should put a call out right now. If you're watching us or listening on this podcast today, and you were a part of or remember the CLC choir, you are going to want to hear this.
Yeah.
Tag somebody.
Give a shout out. Yeah.
Share. Invite somebody to watch this. I'm telling you, I was watching it earlier, just a little piece of it. And honestly, I started lifting my hands. I wanted to just start crying.
Can we roll that video?
Yeah,
Can we roll that
amazing
video.
man.
I'd like to see that. Whenever you guys are ready.
The CLC choir. This was directed by you too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see.
There it is. Wow.
Like you said, 150 legit.
Yeah. Did you recruit the band as well?
In fact,
Listen to
Tim,
this song is like been all over the world. I've played it
yeah.
all over the world.
I have to. Doesn't Ron Canoli sing this?
Gary Oliver.
Gary Vella?
Gary Oliver, yeah.
What year was this?
That's 1992.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
That's right.
There he is, back in the keyboard.
And what's his name? Glenn?
Hey, what's his name?
Vincent Manueller. He's a bishop actually over in Richmond, California.
Oh, wow.
God bless you.
PAW.
If you're watching, we love you.
We stay in touch occasionally. But literally that recording, the entire thing, we hit play, record, it was start to finish, no overdubs.
What's that bass player's name?
It's Tommy Brown.
Tommy Brown.
He's still at CLC.
Still
Oh, is
playing, right? Still playing, right? You got to get him in
The
the
guy,
studio.
who's the drummer?
Tim Ramirez, man, he's still playing there too. That's really my old crew is still there.
Wow.
I just saw them.
That's something to be proud of. We're still doing it.
Tim, God miraculously did this year.
That's right. I
Oh,
wrote
yeah,
down for
yeah.
him. Yeah, we did
Yeah.
pray. And is he in relation to Joe Ramirez?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's cousin to Joe Ramirez.
Okay, Joe is coming on the
Podcast soon.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
talked to him earlier, and he's going to come on and be with us.
Cool.
He's working today, but interesting. Well, let's move on. That's
great.
I could listen to that all day.
I'm gonna go download that. Ken, is that on Apple Music? It's gotta be right. Yeah, I'm gonna go download it.
Everyone that would like
Thanks, guys. We're done.
if everyone that wants to listen to Glenn's music, you can go to Apple. You go to Apple and download it, purchase it, put it on your music list. Great music. Gary wrote the song, right?
Gary wrote
So
the song.
Gary Oliver is a great friend of mine. Gary, if you're listening today,
Shout out to
props
Bishop
to
Gary
you,
Oliver.
man,
Absolutely.
Bishop Gary Oliver, and comes from the same camp, right? He comes from the same camp.
But you wrote some of the song too, right?
Not this song, but on those albums. I mean, we did over the course of that period, we did 7 albums, and on 7 albums, I think I had 42 songs or something.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
when I first met Glenn, and found out who he was. And I'm sure, because I've been around this ministry my whole life, I might have met you when I was younger or something,
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
I know my parents had met you at some point, but I remember when I found out.
Music's still playing, guys.
The
music is still. It's okay. It's good background music, but thanks, guys.
He did the choir. I told him, I go, man, when I was a kid, especially the youth choir, I wore that tape out, man. That was my favorite. Like the CLC choir was like my favorite. No Greater Love is like I still love that song.
Let me say this, because we're gonna get into a lot of other people you've played with too. But when did you meet us, or when did Bishop meet you?
Well, earlier I asked him, let's play a word game, and I said, "Ye old Hoosier Inn." Mm-hmm. And what'd you say? You said that's where we
went for our break, mid-morning break from Bible school.
Yeah, and I think that I ran into you first there, and I think we sat down and had coffee, and had lunch or something there. Wow, I love that restaurant. Wasn't that an awesome restaurant? What happened to that thing?
They
burned
just
down?
closed it down.
It burnt down, right?
Well,
the owner.
Interesting enough, the guy somebody bought that sign and put it on his front lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Out towards the east side, it's on his front lawn.
Yeah. Well, Glenn and I met. We were a lot younger. Glenn was really, in some ways, to me, was like a kid, and of course now he's not at all. We're both grown and done, moved on, and have kids and families and all that kind of stuff. But I was intrigued because he was so young, and yet he was, leading this choir and such a large part of the ministry. A lot of people here in the city, most people that's watching right now going, oh yeah, Glenn Woodward, I remember CLC choir, and I remember all the great landmark conferences, but some of the stuff they don't know, I think, is where you're going to take us.
Yeah,
right?
so, Glenn, you've had the amazing privilege of playing for and doing some awesome stuff for, who are some of the people in your life that's been landmark for you?
Yeah. Well, when I left here, I actually had 2 albums in the can that I had to finish. Mm-hmm. So we were mixing those in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So I was down there.
Where at?
Huh?
Where at? Where'd you mix
plant.
it? Oh, at record
plant. Record plant. Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
So we were down there mixing, and I remember picking up one of the Hollywood papers, and I saw there was a environmental benefit at the House of Blues. Mm-hmm. And the musical director was David Foster, and that's my keyboard idol of all time.
I wonder, because a lot of this generation may not know who he is until they start hearing some of his accomplishments. Kind of wrap off some of the stuff that David Foster would be well known, famous for.
I mean, as a session player, he was doing everything with Quincy Jones and James Ingram and Patty Austin and all those. But then as a producer, he did his big break was Earth, Wind, and Fire, but then...
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, After the Love Is Gone.
What did he do for them? He played the piano for that?
Or produced them.
Oh, he produced them.
Did he write that song or no?
After Love... I don't... he did write After Love Is Gone.
Wow.
Chris looked up some... The phone's bugging on you. But so if you have a chance, look up David Foster. I mean, if you've watched any live Christmas special on ABC or NBC, he's usually the guy running the orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It says here, so I'm looking at just a list of songs that he's written. And I mean, some of the we're talking
get on with it, man.
Mariah Carey, Barbara Streisand, Josh Groban.
So he's worked with Mariah Carey, Josh Groban,
Mary J. Blige, Faith Hill, Kenny Loggins, Chicago.
Kenny Loggins, there's a name I haven't heard for years.
Even Andrea Bocelli.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, he discovered Josh Groban, Michael Bublé, and all that.
Oh, he did?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
BB and CC?
Yeah, you know what? I heard that story because Celine Dion was wherever she was. I don't remember. Montreal, and she needed a person to do a duet with, I guess. And the person that was supposed to do it was sick or something. Mm-hmm. And I guess it was David Foster or someone called Josh Groban and says, I know a kid that can do it. And they called him and said, can you sing with Celine Dion tonight? And he was still a student, and he turns it down. He goes, "No, I'm terrified." And
I probably
hangs up the phone, right? But then his teacher calls him and basically says, "Get your behind down there to that auditorium right now. You're singing." And he goes, "So I did it," and he said, "It changed my life forever."
Wow.
Sang one time with Celine.
And you worked with Celine Dion. I think we have pictures of that somewhere. And worked with her. What'd you do with her? Just
back then, I was assistant producing, but programming some of the tracks. I worked on 3 of her albums.
Man, you were so ahead of the curve.
Look at that
I
young
remember
man right
thinking
there.
to myself, what in the
That's
world?
awesome.
Why
She's
would you
a
take
sweetheart.
so much time to be, into all that computerized stuff, but you were really ahead of the curve on that stuff.
Well,
when you say
it was a different day.
What was the name of that thing with the dial? Remember the dial and had all the dial?
Oh my goodness, that was a Roland MC500.
Yeah, MC500.
And you would store your tracks on a floppy disk.
Yeah. I had one of our little more not wealthier but better off members. I took him down to a music store and showed him that, and he bought it for me. And this is sad. I never could figure that thing out, really. And I think
you
were working
Rick
on a screen this big.
Yeah. Oh, do I remember? And I think I ended up giving that to Bishop
Rick.
Robert Hooks.
No, I programmed
the
first programmed choir album I did on
you did?
MC500. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I got a question. So when you work with Celine Dion, did she speak to you in French? Because you're both from Canada, and
Well, I don't know that much French, but that's her first language.
well, just
So
curious.
I can tell when she's speaking, or even when she's singing. I can
because you
tell
can speak a little, right?
some of the inflections.
Yeah, interesting.
Is New Brunswick like in the kind of the French Canadian?
No.
No.
We're at the East Coast, but I mean everything in Canada is bilingual now.
So,
okay.
Wow.
So we have a list of some people you've played. Another one is you played for Lionel Richie.
I was going to say, if that's fact, because that's right now, the generation right now.
Yeah,
yes,
show the pictures as we're
absolutely.
talking,
Watch
yeah.
this. Yeah, Lionel
Yeah.
Richie. This is a big deal
So
right here. There he is.
Lionel Richie. So did you play the piano for?
Wow.
Explain that before
No,
they switch to the picture.
And
Thanks.
All right.
that was a song called Your Voice, and I was assistant production on that and programming.
Yeah.
But actually, my former wife Sherry, she came to pick me up at the studio that night, and we needed a background singer. So on that song,
No.
it's her.
Oh, wow.
It's Lionel and Sherry.
Wow, that
No
is a
kidding.
piece of history.
Who would know,
right there.
right?
Who would have ever known? And this.
I mean,
right,
a lot of times an artist.
you
will
talk
have
about a shelf life. Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, this
man.
guy is still going
You know-
and blowing, and he's kind of become a father figure to so many of these
He
people
really-
that are coming across American Idol too.
He seems to be one. I'm not being funny when I say this, but one of the purest, kindest people that's been on American Idol in a long time. He still has a show in Vegas
and
now too, right?
A shout out though to our Katy Perry,
Oh yeah,
who happens to be. We love Katy, and we know her through, of course, her mom and dad, Keith and Mary Hudson.
Yeah.
And she's funny. She's kind. All of them are kind.
No,
but you're right.
No, I agree. But what
Lionel
I'm saying
is
is
like a dad
right.
figure.
I'm commenting. I'm
Yeah.
piggybacking off what you said. Him being a dad, he's a very pure, kind. Seems treats everybody like a dad.
real sensitive.
But he does have a show in Vegas right now, I believe. That's still
Well, not now.
still rolling.
Not now. But
I don't. Is he?
Well, what
not
he
during
means is
the
nobody has a
pandemic.
show right now.
Oh, I get you. Yeah, not
not
currently
now.
right this second. But
I got.
But you know what? He's a true stylist. To me, he's as big of a stylist as a Frank
explain
Sinatra.
that. What's a
Sure.
stylist?
Like when you hear his voice, even on that song we recorded.
wow.
Yeah.
There was a couple of things that I worked on of his, but I mean that particular song, just the way he crafted his vocal, and a lot of those guys, you think that they need somebody like a David Foster to produce them or something, but a lot of times they're as hard on themselves as a producer would be. Steve
could
Perry,
imagine.
the same thing.
I
mean,
could imagine. And a lot of folks, you talk about Steve Perry, they need to put that with the name Journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kick it to Chris on Journey.
Absolutely,
here.
one of my favorite bands. Seen them a few times live,
Yeah.
and that's because I've gotten to know you. I've gotten to know some of these names. That's new to me right there. Was the Steve Perry one, and he's, in my estimation, I don't know if you put him as a rock singer or just singer as a general, but his voice is ridiculous.
He's a believer now.
Is he really?
He's a born again
Yeah.
believer now.
Well, I had heard that he was several years ago that he was thinking about coming out of retirement and even going back with Journey at some point,
Wow.
but I don't think it worked out. But what did you do with Steve Perry?
That was a song for a Warner Brothers animation, and he sang the lead theme for the song.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, he was harder on himself than Foster was.
Wow.
Well, let me shoot some names at you, Joel.
Yeah.
Kick it back to you here
Yep.
in a second.
No, go ahead.
Lisa Marie Presley.
No kidding.
Lisa Marie Presley. How did that happen?
How that man, that whole chapter of my life, it was
blur?
day after day. It was just
Playing with
different.
somebody
Whoever
different.
he was working with, I was a part of. But
David Foster, you mean?
yeah, that particular thing, it was the 25th anniversary of Elvis's death, and we took an Elvis song called "Don't Cry Daddy," pulled it off an 8-track tape, pulled his voice off,
Wow.
and created a track and a duet
That's
with her.
interesting.
Oh,
Like
wow.
you remember Unforgettable?
Yeah.
Same.
So a
same kind of
duet
thing.
with her and
Elvis.
and Elvis. You kept the
Yeah,
wow.
they pulled Elvis's voice off the tape.
Like if you saw that, he said the Unforget with Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole, how they did that.
Unforgettable,
Same
yeah.
concept.
What would
yeah.
what would be fun for our listeners is for them to Google that
Yeah.
and to see that duo
Right.
and know that Glenn was.
Well, now
a
I
part
wanna
of that.
hear it.
Yeah,
was a part of
anything
that
we're mentioning,
project.
you can go Google it and you can look up a lot of these songs on Apple and they're there.
Yeah,
We have pictures of some other people. Throw another picture up there. so
How
you
about
can see.
Amy Grant? Amy Grant, the
Yeah,
one and
that's-
only. The we're talking about. Amy Grant was one of the biggest, still is, married to now Vince
Gill,
Gill, one of the cleanest
What?
voices in Nashville.
Time out.
Yeah.
I didn't know she's
You
married
didn't know
to Vince
that?
Gill.
And
Wow.
that's
Since
because-
when?
Because you're part of a different generation.
No, I
than we
listened
are.
to Vince Gill. I know but I didn't know she
They've been
was
married to,
married to him.
They've been married a while, right? Like,
High, go high on the mountain. That's
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
voice, man, that golden voice, and
He's part of the Eagles now.
yeah, and so
Vince Gill is part of the Eagles now.
No kidding.
what?
That's news to me.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Yeah, he replaced Glenn Fry because Glenn
No.
Fry
Glenn Fry passed
Yes,
away.
I
Yeah,
know, I know.
yeah.
Oh
I know.
man, who knew that?
That's like my dad's favorite band. I'm asking
Yeah.
if he knew that.
So Amy Grant
Gill.
was a Grammy Award. She was probably the first huge Christian
That crossover.
contemporary
Yeah.
On the radio every day.
crossover. Yeah, star. And you worked with her on what projects? Or
That was a live thing, a couple of live things. We did an event. David would play at Crystal Cathedral once a year, and so I was playing there with him, and she was the other
at
musical
Crystal
guest.
Cathedral.
Yep.
Well, it's interesting because I was just talking to a dear friend of mine, who actually is working with Schuler Jr., Robert Schuler Jr.,
okay.
and
Cool.
introduced me to him, and we're probably going to be having him on the program. He's a very
That'd be
interesting
great.
person, obviously.
Yeah.
So wow, that's amazing. So that's how you met. Did you play behind her, or
Played
you
behind
played
her, yeah.
behind her? Wow. Some of the other names like Helen Baylor. I think we have Helen Baylor. I think we have a video. They may not have
Yeah, I
it.
don't
Well,
know.
Bill
Name it,
Bill
Heather.
Maxwell, he produced all the Undercoach stuff. He was an idol to
I know we
Oh,
have
yeah.
him.
Oh,
If-
yeah.
If, they,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you guys
Listen.
could bring up pictures of Billy Maxwell, this guy is
Oh,
a
man.
legend.
Oh, yeah.
drummer.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
There he
So,
is with Glenn right in the middle.
Yeah.
Anything you watch of Andre Crouch in the '70s or anything you listen to, he's
Wow.
on it.
So
I
a
mean,
music
amazing.
composer friend of mine knew him and had worked with him on some television
Wow.
stuff, and so I just said, hey, introduced me, and we had lunch, and I
Wow.
pitched a song to him for Helen,
Wow.
and so I got a cut on her album.
For Helen Baylor, that's one of Uncle Robert Hooks's.
Yes, Bishop Hooks,
Yeah.
yeah.
he knows her very well. In fact,
yeah.
you know what? Actually, we did a conference with her.
I do remember that.
Yeah, I preached.
Yes.
I preached, and then she was there singing, and she did a concert the following night. She
I
is
remember
a
that.
vocalist like
Oh,
you
man.
Oh, yeah.
cannot believe.
Unreal.
So that, I mean, just some of the stuff that you've done is
Got
like some of it's
Streisand.
well, yeah,
Oh.
and some of it's like off of the beaten track. Like for everyone that's, this younger Rugrats.
Yeah, the movie.
Rugrats.
Yeah, I worked on 3 Rugrats movies.
That's
Rugrats?
cool though.
yeah.
That's cool though,
Rugrats.
man.
Yeah, Rugrats in Paris.
And so you were just playing the piano for the.
I did the tracks, but then I recorded Angelica. She came to my studio in Los Angeles.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
That's like our
yeah,
childhood.
it's crazy,
you know?
crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
What
man.
is
Just
like?
random stuff.
Give us a.
Well, you know Angelica's voice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
you know how
yes.
she gets that voice? She brings the mic and she points it down towards the ground, and she crouches and compresses her diaphragm. and-
Wow.
And sings up or speaks up into
That's
the
weird.
totally weird.
Wow. That's sort
Because
of
I
like-
went in to check on her in the vocal, and she was crouched down on the floor, singing up towards. And
I
I'm
do
like,
that
what?
I do that on Sunday mornings right before I preach. That's
Yeah,
a-
right.
Must be a well-known
Fascinating.
technique.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So give us an idea. What would a session like that look like doing Rugrats? I mean, what's it look from the studio point of view? Like, what would it look like? Someone doing a Rugrats movie? Is it? Do they have like a screen in front of you?
No,
or-
no. It was the exact opposite. We would create the music, create the track, create
Oh,
the
okay.
dialogue,
Oh.
and then they
They
would
animate
draw
to
the movie.
that.
And they would match
Yeah.
it.
They would have, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I'm seeing.
So I did if you want to look it up, I did a track to Donna Summer's "Bad Girls," and it's all the Rugrats.
Way,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
way.
And
How,
Angelica's-
girls.
how,
Yeah.
how would you
Yeah.
Google that? What would you use to
Look up
Google that?
Rugrats in
Yeah.
Paris, Bad
Wow.
Girls.
And that's you playing.
Yeah.
Well, Chris said it a second ago. You play with Barbara Streisand.
You guys are taking me back.
Oh,
man.
look at
Oh,
Rugrats in Paris.
Oh, there it is, Rugrats.
The movie.
Yeah.
Rugrats in Paris, the movie.
Yeah. No, I with David. It was at his house, but I played for Barbara's wedding reception.
Oh wow.
Wow.
That's just cool, man.
Hey, that's
You're making me feel old.
No, sir.
This is good.
no, that is awesome. I mean, just to say that you had been
But
on.
so when I left here and I went to Los Angeles to, I was mixing those albums, got hooked up with David, and so we connected. He, we just had the Canadian thing going on. So he invited me to his studio, and that turned into me doing a 2-year internship with him, and then I started working with him. But when he invited me to his home for the first session, I went out there, showed up. Man, I was just learning the business, learning recording.
Wow. Right.
I'd done a few albums, Christian
yeah.
albums, but I wasn't what I would consider an established producer. So my very first session, I go out there and I'm sitting beside David, and across from me is Barbra Streisand and Bryan Adams. And we were doing a duet for a movie.
Wow.
So.
If they could bring a picture up of find a picture of Bryan Adams in there, the singer, Bryan Adams.
Do you remember
the rock singer?
The Mirror,
Bryan
the
Adams?
movie is The Mirror Had Two Faces, and
Oh,
the
sure.
song is I Finally Found Someone.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Wow. So who?
Man, I got a million stories.
Who
like that.
introduced you? Did you mention that? Who introduced you to David
Well, I went to
Foster?
this benefit at the House of Blues,
Oh, and that's where you met him.
and I just somehow it was my chance of a lifetime.
Wow.
So I literally walked
Had to be
backstage.
divine providence.
God
and
ordained.
I walked up to him and I said, "Hey," I said, "I'm your biggest fan."
Wow, and then you found out you're both Canadian. There's a divine connection, and the rest is history. That's crazy. So
Wow.
you worked with him 2 years, you said?
No, about 4 years.
About 4 years.
4 years, and then
Wow.
I opened up my own studio.
And he does so many different types of genres that people probably don't even realize.
Yeah, I think for somebody in the music industry, he's really been one that's been able to reinvent himself. I mean, you take Earth, Wind, and Fire, then all the Chicago years,
Yeah.
That's
then
huge.
Celine Dion, then
Yeah.
Whitney Houston,
Yeah.
The Bodyguard, then Josh Groban, then
Time out. He did Bodyguard for Whitney Houston.
That I did know.
Yeah,
I
1994.
did not know that.
Yeah, he did.
That's huge.
Producer of the Year. I think he won 2 or 3 Grammys off that alone. I think now he's
that
got
Bryan
16
Adams
or
popped up.
16, 17
Oh, wow.
Grammys.
Yeah.
Yeah, he helped write. If I'm correct, one of the songs, a famous Whitney Houston song off that he actually wrote.
Which
correct?
one?
I'm trying to. I have it right here, but I'm trying to remember which one.
You know
it
what
was.
makes this so amazing too for everybody
Right.
listening out there, and they're like, "Yeah, I got Bryan Adams autograph too once." That doesn't, it's an accomplishment to be able to say that you are not only known but respected by these people as a musician.
Yeah.
I have nothing. Is what it says.
It's a big deal that you are respected by David Foster and
Absolutely.
Celine Dion, and I mean these people
Yeah.
that you've played with. And you're a trusted musician, especially for people that may play an instrument out there and they're listening to this. That's a huge accomplishment, and of course, a lot of hard work and practice goes into it. But I think you'd also have to say the Lord had a lot to do with it.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Without question.
The
And,
favor
and,
of the Lord.
and I want to say huge respect, huge reverence for David Foster in case he gets to watch this
Yep.
or happens to watch it. That we have such huge respect. You have said so many wonderful things about this guy that I feel like I kind of know him. His heart, you know what I mean. His work ethic, his creativity, all that kind of stuff. And in some ways, I think it is kind of an anointing. It is an anointing or a gift that God places on your life that you've had the blessing of benefiting from in a lot of ways. You learned a lot from him, right?
Well, I think one of the greatest talents he has is he's has incredible melody sense, and to be able to take a song and that melody and create a masterful arrangement around it. So, you're not always playing everything all in the first course kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, I may be prodding in areas I shouldn't go here, but does he have like a team of people that he works with?
I think it's developed
to
over the
develop
years. I mean, it was a
things?
very, very close group of people when I was there.
Because this is just kind of new to me. I'm sure it's been done for years and years, but I was talking to David and Nicole Binion, who we're going to have on sometime in the future.
Oh yeah.
And David was saying that now, like when they write their songs, they'll fly to Nashville, and they will meet in hotels, and they have a team of people that
Cool.
Integrity Music assigns, or I guess that they've chosen or whatever, and they come together to write their music. So
That's cool.
it's kind of a community effort, so to speak, in terms of having the right gifted people in the room to know
Sure.
what should and should not go into those lyrics.
Sure.
So David Foster, though, probably didn't need much help. Probably, I would think that probably because he's so busy and has so many different projects, he has to have a
He's
team.
not a real lyricist. he writes music.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's contributed, but he's more of a.
Oh, another picture up there.
Yeah. Well, probably one of my.
Yeah.
If I have one thing that I'm.
There he is. That's the man right there himself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If there's one thing I'm proud about that era, so one of the first jobs he gave me to do myself as a producer, we got hired to do a soundtrack for a television series in Japan. And they wanted him to rip off all of his songs because they didn't want to pay the licensing fees.
Wow,
so we
doesn't
did.
that sound familiar lately? Have they ever been going around with the
So we did stuff
Asian
like
market?
St. Elmo's Fire, Somewhere, the Barbra Streisand thing, all these different songs. I love Look What You've Done to Me. But they were supposed to sound like that, but they couldn't be those songs.
Right.
So we created a whole soundtrack for this television show. But on that particular project, it says on the production credits, produced by David Foster and Glenn Woodward.
Oh, wow.
To my knowledge, now maybe that's changed, but up until that point, he had always produced by David Foster, co-produced by somebody, but he'd never given somebody full production credit.
Wow. What a heart.
Yeah.
What
So I think
a
I was
heart.
the first one. So I'll take that one to my grave.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Hey, that's a good heart, man.
Tattooed over here, man. Your left arm.
Yeah. No, I have that one hanging in my house.
All right,
Yeah.
so here's another name. We're going to name drop a little bit more here today before we get into the next piece of this. Bette Midler.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that was a song for a movie. Another song for a movie. But the sweetest thing. I mean, you see her from beaches and all that kind of stuff. But when she walks in the studio, it's like somebody's grandmother.
Yeah.
You know.
And Dionne Warwick. Dionne Warwick. I saw this name. I thought, my God, I've been listening to Dionne Warwick since I was a little boy. You know, what an honor to
What'd
work
you do
with
Dionne
her.
Warwick?
And I got a phone call, and she needed someplace to cut vocals. So I think there's a picture of
And
that.
did that connect you with Whitney Houston in any way? Or?
No,
Never
it was
developed.
just
Huh?
It was
Two
just
separate things. Let me ask you this. So you keep mentioning your studio. How large was your studio?
I broke off. Broke off from David, and I opened in 1999, and that was in Los Angeles till about 2006.
Wow.
What was that called?
Past 12 Productions.
Past 12. Wow. What's the past 12?
Because I used to work in St. Hours.
Oh,
Past
Well,
12.
that- yeah, I was
Wow,
gonna say that
past
sounds
12.
about right.
Mhm.
That's cool.
But obviously, you were doing something right if Dionne Warwick, and all these guys are stopping by your
Yeah.
studio.
Well, I think when you're in a environment like Los Angeles, work just falls in your lap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. The favor of God is on you, man, and that's the difference. Because a lot of people try to do it their whole life and can't do it.
Yeah.
They could have all the right equipment, but it doesn't happen.
I'm thankful, man. I mean, my
It's a
musical
compliment.
career has been. I feel like I've lived 7 lives. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. Who are some other names you have on there?
Well, let me ask you this: When, in your earliest memory, when did you give your heart to God? When did you give your
seriously,
heart to Jesus?
I was thinking about
Seriously.
that this morning.
Uh-huh.
I can pinpoint the day I was driving to work. I'd messed around for a few years in my teens, and it was probably a year before I came to Bible school. And I was driving to work one morning, and the
In
Lord
Canada?
in Canada, and the Lord just, man, was dealing with me. And that day, I told him, if you'll turn my life around, then I'll serve you for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Can you remember any of the events in which you felt like God was dealing with you up to that moment? Something that maybe He was leading you to that moment, or was it just a
tired.
moment?
I was
just a
tired
moment?
of the way that I was living, and
You're ready.
Yeah, ready.
For everyone that's listening today that may feel that way, because a lot of people that listen to our podcasts, I should say some people aren't born again. They're not saved, haven't been filled with the Spirit. You too can come to the Lord too.
Absolutely.
People get, Glenn is a great example in terms of, I'm sure you can speak to this yourself, but to have so much going, you had great parents, your parents are some of the most solid people I've ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. You had everything going for you, and even with everything going for you, the same thing, you felt the world pulling you back out there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Los Angeles for me in that whole world, I got a lot of people aspire and they dream about being up in the big middle of that and making it and whatever. I got as close as I want to come.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm glad I got out.
Wow. Talk a little bit about that.
I'm very serious when I say that. I mean, I was there, met a lot of great people, had a lot of great experiences. But even though I was doing that, I always stayed tied to a church. I always played somewhere on Sunday and Wednesday.
Wow. There's
and
mom. There's mom and
yeah.
dad's influence right there, because they
I'm
raised you
thankful
that
I did.
way. Yeah, they raised you that way. So, what you're saying, and just not to speak for, but to pare it back, you're saying that with all of that influence, let's be honest, because I've been down there too, and you and I have run in some of the same circles. You can smell power when you walk into the right room. When you have influential people, each one of them who have made it on their own, and you walk into a room like that, it can be, for a better lack of words, it's like when you walk in, it's almost like enchanting,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
But after a while, as you know, and you get in those certain levels of success, you find out very quickly it is not everything that it's stacked up to
Right.
be. You know, nothing can take the place.
I had somebody who is an extremely successful writer. I could mention the name, but I won't. But he told me one time, he said, because I was asking, how much is your BMI check? And he said, trust me, you wouldn't want my life.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Yeah, money is not everything. And right now in this pandemic, I'm telling you, people that haven't waken up to that, they need to realize that your health, your soul, first of all, and then your health, and your well-being, your family well-being, peace. Peace is the most precious commodity on planet Earth right now. And then there's not a lot of peace up in some of those realms you worked in, right?
absolutely. You know, Bishop, I got to be part of a lot of great records and a lot of great experiences. But in everything that I've ever done in my life, there's never been anything that's been so rewarding and so fulfilling as being in a church service and ministering music and feeling the presence of God and seeing the reaction on people's faces.
I can say amen to
I would
that.
agree with that too.
And I'm gonna dare to cross a line that most preachers may not want to cross, but I want to include religion on that, because just because you're in a large gathering or you're in church doesn't mean that automatically that equals the presence of God.
Yeah,
you know.
Sure.
And the reason I'm saying that is because the opposite of you, I was. Jordana and I started being used up in high places real early on. I was in my early 20s, and we started traveling with people that I won't mention, but they were running massive crowds. We're talking 20, 30,000 people, 10,000, 20,000 people, turning that many people away.
Yeah.
And it was such a large setting, and yet in some of these circles, we knew immediately that we needed to get out. Some of it just wasn't. It wasn't God, and I'm saying that to this, like young preachers and people who are aspiring to be great evangelists and reach the world. You need to really stay centered and really stay rooted down and grounded, and always remember, no matter how much the Lord advances you and promotes you and blesses you. There are so many different people, even in the religious world, that get lost in all of it.
Sure.
And just because it's church doesn't mean you can't get lost in all of it, because there's power centers in everything, and including the religious world. And that's one of the things I love about you. And you're talking about where you've been and what you've done. We could sit here for an entire day. There's so much on your repertoire. It blows my mind. Your resume. But yet you have, you like today, you've come back and you've centered and you've balanced back and said, listen, with everything and all the people I know, at the end of the day, it's all about Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all. And then your sons. Look at your sons and what the Lord is doing with your sons. Your oldest son is recording now too.
He is
right?
recording.
Yeah.
He just put out his first single last year. He wrote it, and in the circles that he runs in, they do a national convention, and he performed his own song with his own team in front of 35,000 young people last July.
So that was with the organization?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And how old is he?
20.
He's 20. Wow, that's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
Got the same anointing that you have.
Yeah.
That's from you. You know that.
Well,
Yeah, that's from you.
And it's funny because, like, our family, I see sort of a reflection in terms of his youngest boy. Like Jordan turned out to be
A singer,
the little computer geek. Now he runs everything.
Yeah.
And your youngest one is really into all that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's different. It's interesting to watch kids and what they gravitate to now. He's got his own YouTube channel now, and he's putting up worship nights and creating a weekly.
That's cool.
In fact, I was with him last night, and he's like, "Dad," says, "Yeah, when I get 150 followers, then I've got to do some ice bucket challenge or something."
That's funny.
That's awesome.
My oldest seems to have kind of the music. He likes. I have a piano in my house, and he likes to play the piano and stuff like that. And we have a similar type of, not on the level as you, but I played out in the world a lot. I cut my teeth as a musician out in the world, playing in the metal scenes and the rock scenes. And even then, when I was in the world, I was raised in church. I was raised in Bishop's ministry. And even then, when I was out in the world, there was always that kind of conscious, for lack of a better term, of like, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. And I reconnected with a friend of mine who was in that band with me, and he's saved now and all that. And we got to talking about that. I was like, man, I got as far into that as I would have ever wanted to go. And my son had found some pictures. He has no idea. All he knows is the church. And he found some pictures from us playing, and they're not the most flattering pictures that I want my son to see.
I've seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played metal music, we played that kind of stuff. And when I explained it to him. He's smart. I explained it to him. But to hear that about how you said, we got I'm so glad I didn't step in any further than I got as far as I agree with that sentiment. Even though it wasn't on your level, we were getting pretty deep, and I appreciate that statement, because I was the exact same way. I'm so glad, I'm so glad I didn't. I got every bit of taste of that, and it's like you said, when I come here and play every week, I get way more satisfaction. In playing in front of that than playing in front of hundreds of people.
There's a question I have to ask Glenn. I know we got to move on here, but a question I have to ask you that I ask every person. Like you, I'm well connected with gospel music and stuff, and producers and whatever, especially black gospel. I want to ask you a question I've asked other people. Was there anything when you were out there that when you heard it, you said, no, I'm not going to produce that. I'm not going to do that?
I don't know, man. I was part of a lot of records. Duet with Snoop Dogg, all kinds of stuff. Crazy stuff.
Oh, you played with Snoop Dogg. That's cool.
I edited.
I mean, you were a working studio, so I suppose.
He said a duet with Snoop Dogg. You did a duet with Snoop Dogg?
Yeah, right.
Wow, we should have brought Snoop Dogg up on the screen there for a second. Well, I just asked, because I was asking, we're having Rick later on this week, and I was asking Rick, is there anything that you would not do? And he was telling me about a session he was doing, and it just got so, he said it was so dark. Dark.
Yeah.
Just hit him,
He just, it's like, because he gave his heart to the Lord a few years ago, and he just said, I'm sorry, guys, I just can't continue the session. So you never had any of those moments, huh?
Nothing like that. I mean, there's some lyrical content and stuff like that I just don't want to be a part of. That kind of stuff.
You know what seems to be a theme on this podcast? It seems like we always somehow come back to this subject, is that you can never run from God.
No, not at all.
God's omnipresent, and there are certainly places you can go and things you could do where you won't feel the presence of God.
Yeah.
But you can't run from God. He's always available. He always loves you. He's always ready to forgive. He's always ready to lift you back, and thank God for it, that He's omnipresent. But as I hear you telling all these stories, and you said, I've gone as far as I wanted to and don't care to really go back, for lack of a better term, that's what you said. I think it's very interesting to note that you kept running back to church on Sundays. You needed that. That's where you recharge. That's what keeps you centered.
I'd say coming back to the presence of God, I wouldn't put it on church. I just
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
So, let me say this, because I know that a lot of people get a picture of us, me, you, all of us. And when we talk about our ministry, our life, our careers, because a lot of that is all mixed together in our story, people don't realize that within that narrative, we too have dark moments. We have moments where we go through. We lose our way. In my early years, when your mom and I were traveling, as I said, with these large crusades and the various people that we were working for in and out, because we were doing music. That's what we did. We led praise and worship for these large gatherings.
Yeah.
I had a moment during the first few years where I kind of lost my way.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit, I'll just be honest with you, I started falling. Your mom and I weren't traveling together. I never cheated on her, thank God.
Yeah.
But I did start
falling away a bit?
Well, I started doing stuff and that I probably shouldn't have been doing. Thank God for grace.
Amen.
But in the middle of that, I remember like 6 or 7 months into that, it's like the Holy Spirit said, "What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want? Is this really what you want for the rest of your life?" And remember, this was in ministry.
Yeah, sure.
And I was in a really bad place, and I've said this before, but I had to come home. I made the decision that I was going to make sure that you went to heaven, all of my kids, and that I was going to heaven, and I wasn't going to forsake my relationship for religion or for anything.
Yeah.
And the Lord brought me back, and it took me, your mom would probably tell you, 6 months to a year, maybe even more, to really recover. You know,
Wow.
I mean,
Sure.
all of us have those moments. Did
Sure.
you have
Oh, yeah.
any of those moments out there where you felt like you had got pulled out there, and the Holy Spirit had to bring you back in? You know?
Absolutely, Bishop. I think the older I get, number one, I think being right is overrated.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Make that a T-shirt.
No, being right is overrated. So
And by right, you mean like always right, like in terms of what you
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm never too humble to take correction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to get my way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think a teachable person is a very wise person.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're all students. We're all still learning, and that's why they call it a walk with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm still walking with God.
Yeah.
He's teaching me things every day, still speaking to me.
It's good. It's powerful.
You know, maybe not, let me rephrase it, maybe not even related so much into darkness as sin or anything, but let me give an example. Like, for example, you almost died in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think to have you bring the pictures, but tell us about that. I mean, you literally could have died. I remember seeing the pictures of the car. I can't believe
died.
I couldn't. Yeah, I meant should have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, my God, how did you come out of that? Tell us a little bit about that whole situation.
I came back from Canada, and I was actually working in Los Angeles, but I'd flown 14 hours, came back to Sacramento, came to Stockton, saw my boys, and I was leaving the next morning, early in the morning, to go to Los Angeles. And I got to Los Banos, fell asleep.
Oh my gosh.
And I woke up in
the
gravel, and I overcorrected. So I was in a Tahoe, and it went end to end 6 times.
Jesus.
Whoa.
Jesus.
So when they found me, I was hanging out of the driver window.
Jesus.
You're kidding.
No, and I woke up in a helicopter being taken to Modesto Hospital.
Oh my gosh.
But and other than that, I remember I went from that memory, just waking up in the helicopter, had no clue where I was, and then I guess the first thing that went through my mind is, thank God I'm alive.
Yeah.
Right.
But then I woke up and there was a nurse. She was with a warm washcloth, was taking shards of glass out of my wrist.
Wow.
So, but I broke my neck. So C5 and C6, God, they didn't operate on me. They let me heal, but God healed my C5 and
Praise
C6.
That's
God.
a miracle.
So, but I shouldn't be walking.
So you and I
playing.
are kind of reconnected during that point. I don't know if you remember that, but that's kind of when we started reconnecting, and the Lord had dealt with me about calling you. And without going into great detail, you had been working for someone really well known back east. You had come back here, and it's just such a blessing to have a longtime friend and someone who I regard as a brother, as a son, and in some ways kind of like a son-brother relationship. We just thank the world of you.
We go back. We didn't mention that I recorded one of your songs on one of the CLC projects.
That's right.
Which one was
you
that?
sure did.
Yeah. Which one was that?
What
That
song
was a
was
big
that?
deal.
There might be a reason why we didn't mention
What
it.
song was that?
But
Together.
Together. Yeah, that's right.
I don't
And the
remember
CLC
that.
choir did that, right?
But the magic of that tune to me, the magic of that song to me
Yeah.
was I used all different soloists. So it wasn't just like
Wow.
a soloist in the choir. I used
Wow.
this one to sing this one,
Wow.
and this one to sing
Someone
that
needs
one.
to open up the door, I think, for Rick Duncan. He's
Yeah,
calling.
hey,
or
look-
someone call Rick Duncan to make sure he's still on.
That's okay. He's here at the studio.
I hope you got paid on that. Did you not get paid? If I did, if you didn't get paid,
I don't think I did, but after thinking about the song, it probably doesn't really matter,
Wow.
But I was honored, actually. I was honored. That was way back when you
It
were
is a
working with
great song.
Kent Washburn, right?
Kent Washburn, yeah.
Kent Washburn.
And you know
yeah.
what? We got to have you back on the show sometime.
We have
because
to.
I'll tell you why. We didn't mention Abraham Laborio. Laboria.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Laboria, yeah.
Carole King.
One of the greatest.
Oh
listen,
my God,
Yeah.
Carole King.
And
There's so many
Abraham
people we
Laborio
haven't.
is the
There's so many people we haven't
greatest bass
mentioned.
player.
But man, we love you, Glenn. Thank you for stopping by. Thank
Sure
you for
thing.
I
sharing.
tell Glenn all the time, is an honor to play with him.
Yeah.
Every time
Yeah.
we get
It's
a
done playing,
privilege.
I walk up to him
Yeah.
and say,
It's a
it's always an
privilege.
honor and a privilege. I love playing with
Glenn
Glenn.
will go on record by saying this, but he's called me his favorite drummer.
Oh yeah,
His favorite drummer that he's
Yeah,
ever
and
played
well-
with ever
Well,
is
Joel,
me. So
you were the last name. We weren't going to
I
cover your
wasn't-
name
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
list
yeah,
yet,
yeah.
but your name was on the list.
I wasn't
Somebody
going
needs
to
to
say
drop my
anything
name.
about him calling me his favorite singer, but
I
since
think
you-
what I actually said is there's a difference when you hit the drums.
yes. Well,
There you go.
the same thing. Compliment.
it said-
What I heard in my head was you're my favorite
The
drummer.
list that we have is Barbara Streisand, Bette Midler,
Yes.
Joel Filke. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That is on the list.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, before we go off the air today, is there any advice that you would give to young musicians, songwriters,
choir
something?
directors?
I mean, you
Yeah.
obviously have all the wherewithal and everything in your record that says people need to be listening if you give advice. So, is there any advice that you would like to
Oh, man.
give?
Well, if somebody wants to be a musician, I mean, I think the first thing is number one, be a musician.
yeah,
Then the instrument comes second.
yeah.
You know?
Explain
Explain that. Yeah,
Explain
that's you just dropped a gold nugget on us
Well,
there.
let's save that for the next time. But the other thing is just to be teachable, and
Yeah.
and you say this all the time, Bishop.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like different income streams and everything, you have to diversify. If you try to
Yeah.
put your eggs all in one basket,
Yeah.
the chances of making it are pretty.
Right.
Not that
I
I,
think
not,
people
I'm not
make
saying
that
that I've made
No,
it.
no.
But you know what?
don't.
I've been God's blessed me to be in music for 30 years, and I'm very, very grateful.
I think
of
a
that.
lot of people make that mistake. They put all their eggs in one basket. I'm only going to play country music because I'm a country singer. I'm only going to play gospel music 'cause I'm a gospel, and it ruins it. You don't. You could really spread your wings, but
Well, a real quick plug too. You're in real estate now.
I am into real estate.
And if someone needs to buy a house or
Oh
find
man,
a
no!
house,
I figured when
call Glenn.
when I'm 75 years old, nobody's probably going to be hiring me to play keys.
stop
Glenn.
it.
Yeah, don't even go there, man.
Glenn.
Stop it.
one of the most modest people on planet Earth.
And
right here.
not to be funny, I'm not. And as if you don't know it already, I don't know what to tell you. But he is a great session piano player,
Yes.
great
Yes.
organist.
Mhm.
So if you need anything done, you can look him up. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we're grateful that he's working with us and helping
yeah.
helping us
Absolutely.
when we need him to come in, and
Yeah.
we hope that we can work together more and more and more, and
Absolutely.
that you continue. And I want to say this publicly. Please do not lay your gift down. You are not done. I'm listening to you like on a Sunday, and when I go back and I listen to the keyboard part, to be honest with you, I'm a bit intimidated. Like I didn't even need to be in the session. But listening to you play, I'm thinking the world really has yet to hear
Right. I
Glenn
would agree.
It's
Woodward.
another level.
I would absolutely
It's a whole
agree with
different
that.
level.
We were watching the just the other day. My wife and I were watching the Good Friday thing again, and I'm sitting there. There's two things I'm commenting on. It's Bishop singing. I told my wife, I'm like, listen to this dude sing. And Glenn, every 30 seconds, I'm like, Glenn. I'm like, honey, I'll rewind it. Be like, listen to what he just did. Like, absolutely,
Yeah.
Glenn, absolutely.
Doesn't the Bible say, "Be careful when men speak well of you"?
Yes, it does.
Applauding
Actually,
on you, Glenn.
it does. But I gotta say this. One of the things, for example, that I'm impressed with. Here's an example before we go off the air. This is so cool. Okay, so we did that live from the studio, from Nacknud Studios.
Yep.
In Lodi, we did that live Good Friday, and I did not plan this, but off of the cuff, Glenn knew how to bracket that thing in. So in other words, we didn't just come in and sing these songs. A lot of people think that was planned. It wasn't planned. It was because we had people like Glenn, people like our good friend Rick Duncan, and JL as expertise. But we were doing those songs, and Glenn had already had
Sure.
the background in his mind.
Oh yeah.
He already had it in his, just by nature, knew what to do in between all of those songs. That
Absolutely.
stuff doesn't, normal musicians don't
Yeah.
do that kind of stuff.
You know, we don't get a chance to do all this all the time. So Glenn, I know it may be a little uncomfortable, but we mean it. And
Absolutely.
we do mean it. And that kind of stuff like Bishop was talking about, everybody
Yeah.
doesn't know that.
Yeah.
But if they would want to learn that, it would be from a guy
Yeah.
like you.
Yeah.
All
Well, there
right.
are some stuff that I'd like to talk to Glenn about in terms of maybe doing some stuff better. I'm just teasing.
We're kind of out of time, guys, but this has
Yep.
been an absolutely
Thank you, Glenn.
dynamic podcast.
Sure. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you guys for listening. Bishop, thank you for being on with us. Glenn,
My
thank you
pleasure.
for being with us. Chris, thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Check us out this week. We love you guys. See you next time.
Yep.
For Glenn's music, go to Apple and buy his music. God bless you, everybody.